In the 4th year after Lee Changjia's death, I went to his grave to talk to him, only to find that the grave had already been moved. I panicked and rushed home, telling my son to call the police. My son sighed and said, "Mom, Dad's grave was never there. He's buried together with Aunt Juying." He said that during his lifetime, he was forced to marry someone he didn't love, and his only wish was to be buried with the one he loved after death. The Juying he mentioned was the very white moonlight that Lee Changjia had cherished in his heart for 30 years. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day when Lee Changjia abandoned me after my miscarriage to go find Juying. This time, I didn't beg. Instead, I quietly booked a ticket to leave. For the past 3 days, Lee Changjia hasn't come even once. I've had to handle everything myself, getting medicine, receiving injections, and paying the bills. I stayed at the clinic for 3 days and was only discharged when the abdominal pain became bearable. He's been busy wiping the tears of Juying, who thinks she was forced into marriage, and comforting her. How could he possibly have time to care about me? When I returned home and was packing my luggage, Lee Changjia entered the room. He glanced around the house with displeasure. Lee Changjia paused for a moment, pursed his lips and looked at me for a while. Surprisingly, he proactively reached out to help me organize the wardrobe, his voice softening a bit. "I've been gone for 3 days, and you didn't even think to tidy up the house. It's a complete mess." Truth be told, it was just the bed not being made and a few clothes lying around. But this is how he always treats me. The slightest dissatisfaction and he can pull a long face. I gave him a sidelong glance without stopping my hands from packing, saying coolly, "I just got out of the hospital 3 days ago. When you abandoned me, covered in blood, and recklessly went to find Juying, you never once looked back. How's your recovery going?" I scoffed, never expecting him to ask such a thing. Lee Changjia noticed my behavior and casually asked about it. "Not bad." I didn't lift my eyes to look at him as I packed all my clothes into the bag. Lee Changjia was holding an exquisitely wrapped bag in his arms, waving at me with a gentle smile. "Why are you separating our clothes? Take it out to wash." I hugged the bag, never giving him a single glance the entire time. Clearly, he didn't care in the slightest what I intended to do either. Nodding casually without another word, after placing the bag in the woodshed, I turned back toward the house. In my previous life, I waited my whole life but never got to see Lee Changjia buy me a veil or propose to hold a wedding ceremony. "Come here, I bought this for you specially when I went to town." I stood quietly in place, but he didn't show impatience. Instead, he walked toward me with a warm smile. He tore open the bag, took out the veil inside, and pinned it on my head, leading me to the mirror. He nodded with a smile. "I saw the bride wearing this veil at the wedding, and my first thought was that it would look absolutely stunning on you, so I bought it for you." Staring at myself in the mirror with the veil on, a wave of bitterness washed over my heart. Lee Changjia had not expected such an attitude from me. His face full of disbelief as he glared at me with furrowed brows and angry eyes. Yet in this life, simply because I didn't throw a tantrum, he fulfilled my wish. In the past, I would have been deeply moved, but now my heart is as still as water. I took off the veil and said expressionlessly, "I don't like this thing. The factory is planning to select you as an advanced worker, with Juying ranked right after you. You should take the initiative to tell the factory that you don't want the spot and let Juying have it." It was as if to say, "You really don't know what's good for you," he said in a stiff tone. "Take it or leave it, as you wish. I have something to tell you. Juying has married into the city now. Only advanced workers are eligible to work in the city. As a woman, can't you understand the difficulties she's facing?" I looked at him with dim eyes. No wonder he was being so ingratiating earlier. He was waiting for me here all along. The spot was something I earned myself, a concise and clear statement of my stance. I wasn't willing to give it up. He glanced at me impatiently, his brows furrowing into a deep frown. I let out a scornful laugh. Juying was already married. Yet he was still going to such lengths to plan for her. Recalling my previous life, the advanced worker qualification I had secured was suddenly revoked, and Juying ended up being selected instead. No wonder he's been holding on to it for over 30 years. Judging by his attitude now, it's likely that he schemed to ruin my eligibility for the sake of Juying. Lee Chungjia was infuriated by my calm and composed demeanor, clenching his fists and gritting his teeth as he said, "Not a chance." I averted my gaze and calmly stated, "This qualification was earned through my own efforts. Wu Li, I really don't know how I ended up marrying such a cold-hearted and unfeeling woman. You have no compassion at all." Lee Chungjia went into the city again and didn't come back all night. He slammed the door heavily on his way out, making the already dilapidated wooden door creak loudly. "This is my second time entering the city. The last time was when Lee Chungjia brought me here. I only found out this news from the ticket seller brother. It goes without saying who he went to find. In his previous life, he wouldn't have gone to the city after a quarrel, at most. He might have spent a night in the school office, waiting for the next morning when I would humbly go to the school gate to beg him to come home, or perhaps, I had no idea when he went to the city. But in this life, I will never crush my self-respect to please him again." At the station, I bought a train ticket to Shenzhen for 5 days later. Instead of rushing home, I wandered around the city for a while, walking along the road. I couldn't help but recall the early days when Lee Chungjia and I first fell in love. "Ali, I don't know how to properly treat a girl well. I've heard others say that if you like someone, you should keep buying things for her." I met him through a blind date. He's very straightforward and not very good at sweet-talking girls. After just a few meetings, he asked me, "Do you want to take a walk in the city?" As we walked through the city, he pointed out all sorts of interesting things to me. He bought me cotton candy, candied hawthorns, and lots of hair clips. That was the first time I ate something so sweet it made my teeth ache. As we walked, he suddenly took my hand. I could hear his nervous heartbeat, and he said, if I had known back then that Lee Chungjia often came to the city to pursue Juying, I might not have looked forward to going to the city again so much afterward. Back then, I didn't understand what a confession was, and somehow I ended up being with him. I endured half a lifetime by Lee Chungjia's side, and he finally changed his attitude toward me after Juying passed away early due to illness. In Lee Chungjia's eyes, I was just a marriage partner he settled for out of necessity. Without love, his heart would always open only for Juying. I thought my iron tree had finally blossomed, that love had finally borne fruit. Little did I know it was all just my foolish wishful thinking. Lee Chungjia was riding a bicycle with Juying on the back, and Juying smiled sweetly as she reached out to hold onto his back. I was walking along the road when a familiar figure in the distance made me stop in my tracks. It was Juying who got out of the car first and greeted me. She looked at me teasingly and said with a smile, they looked utterly blissful, until the moment he saw me, and his smile froze instantly. Ali, are you here to see Chungjia? He just told me that you would definitely come, begging him to go back home. Lee Chungjia walked over, pushing his bicycle, his brows furrowed with displeasure. Her words were filled with mockery and scorn. Lee Chungjia frowned, clearly not believing my words. His tone softened a little as he walked over to me. Who told you to come? Don't think I'll be the same as before, that I'll go home with you just because you begged me twice. Watching his smug expression, I kept a straight face and said, just passing by. Lee Chungjia grabbed my wrist with a displeased expression. Fine, I can't be bothered to argue with you. Let's go back. No need. I distanced myself from him and walked away. A look of panic flashed across Lee Chungjia's face as he quickly crouched down and asked me urgently. Caught off guard by his sudden pull, I stumbled and accidentally bumped my stomach against a parked bicycle by the roadside. Pain instantly spread throughout my body, and I crouched down, curling up tightly. Juying suddenly let out a sharp cry, and Lee Chungjia hurriedly stopped the car to ask her anxiously, "What's wrong? Did you hit your stomach? Come on, I'll take you to the clinic." Frowning, with cold sweat from the pain on my forehead, I weakly nodded at him. He helped me up, placed me on the bicycle, and had barely ridden a few steps, Juying collapsed on the ground, pointing toward her ankle as she looked at him. "What's wrong?" Lee Chungjia put down his bicycle and headed towards her. I knew that once he went over, he definitely wouldn't take me to the clinic anymore. I think I sprained my ankle. Sure enough, Lee Chungjia only hesitated for a moment before solemnly helping me down, saying apologetically, "Juying's situation is more serious. Wait for me to take her there and then I'll come back for you. Hold on a little longer." He anxiously rode off with Juying, not once looking back at me. I'm not foolish enough to keep waiting for him. I forced myself to get up and went to the pharmacy to buy painkillers. After returning home, I wasn't in a hurry to leave immediately. I booked the train ticket for the day before the results for the advanced workers in the factory were announced. Even though I knew this factory would likely lay off employees and collapse within a few years, but I didn't want what should rightfully be mine to be handed over to Juying just like that, after all. In my previous life, Juying used this opportunity that should have been mine to mock me repeatedly and even took away many things I cherished. I went to the factory and insisted that this opportunity must be given to me, as it was what I deserved. On the day the selection results were supposed to be announced, Section Chief Wang sent someone to call me to the factory. Li Chungjia and Juying were also there. He hadn't returned since the last time we went to the city. I suppose these days you've been by Juying's side day and night, taking meticulous care of her. His gaze fell upon me, as if 1,000 years of frost were pressing down on me, and he angrily scolded in a suppressed voice. "Didn't I tell you to give up your eligibility for the selection?" I said lightly. "I never agreed to that." Juying cried until her eyes were red, her face scrunched up as she tugged at Li Chengjia's sleeve and said, "Chengjia, I believe you will surely give me justice." Li Chengjia looked at her, the coldness in his eyes instantly vanishing, replaced with a heartbroken expression as he handed her a handkerchief to wipe the corners of her eyes, his voice unusually gentle. "Yes, I will help you." Section Chief Wang coughed awkwardly twice upon seeing this and said to me, "Wu Li, Cheng Jia mentioned that you want to withdraw from the advanced worker selection. Is this truly your intention?" He was a shrewd person, with just one glance. He understood what had happened. His words were clearly in my favor. I shook my head. "I have no intention of giving up my qualification." Section Chief Wang nodded, looking at Li Chengjia with a helpless expression, and said, "You see, Wu Li himself hasn't said he's willing to give up his eligibility for the selection. Whatever others say doesn't count." Juying cried even harder, burying herself deeper into Li Chengjia's embrace, and sobbed, "Chengjia, you said you would help me." Li Chengjia wrapped his arm around her, pulling her into his embrace. His expression, filled with both heartache and affection, truly made my eyes sting with emotion. From beginning to end, I had always thought he was a refined and reserved person. He would never show intimate behavior in front of others. Every gesture, whether a hug or holding hands, would make him feel resistant and averse. Once, when I went to pick him up from work, I accidentally brushed my little finger against his. He immediately turned grim and scolded me harshly in front of the neighbors. He said that such behavior tarnished his image as a teacher and showed no consideration for him. I used to think that this was just his nature, so I forced myself to swallow the hurt of his blame and try to understand his temperament. Finally, upon seeing how wholeheartedly he loves someone, only then did I fully understand that everything was simply because he didn't love me. Li Chengjia's voice pulled me out of my memories. Holding the person in his arms tighter, he said with determination and resolve, "I remember there's a rule in the factory. One of the requirements for being an advanced worker is having a marriage partner." Section Chief Wang froze for a moment, then nodded. "There is indeed such a regulation." Following that, Juying turned her face sideways and shot me a challenging look. So in my previous life, for Juying's sake, he actually publicly revealed my scars and secrets to everyone. My fingertips dug deeply into my palms, my tongue bitter with the taste of realization. I knew exactly what he was about to say next. "Wu Li and I never registered our marriage. She was previously married off by her parents as a child bride to an old man, and her household registration booklet is still held over there." He spoke without hesitation in front of everyone in the office. That was the dark, heart-wrenching secret of my life. Yet he broke his promise to me for Juying. "Enough," I interrupted him with a hoarse, furious roar. Tears welled up in my eyes as I stared at him blankly, letting out a bitter laugh. He clearly promised that he would never tell this secret to anyone else. Facing Li Chengjia again, I said numbly and wearily, "I'm giving this qualification to your beloved Juying. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other." The pain in my chest was so intense I could barely breathe. This is what it feels like to be utterly disappointed in someone. Calming myself, I said to Section Chief Wang. He's right, I really have nothing to do with him. I don't want the advanced worker title anymore. Until Juying spoke with tearful eyes and a smile. Section Chief Wang, does that mean the outstanding worker selection should go to me? The office staff were still digesting this shocking news in stunned silence. Section Chief Wang, standing nearby, cast a concerned glance but remained silent for a long while. Li Chungjia remained silent, pursing his lips and staring at me, his eyes filled with unease and regret. He then continued, Wu Li, none of us knew you had been living such a life before. Now that we know, we still won't look down on you, whether you have a marriage partner or not. Your performance in the factory is beyond reproach. I didn't respond to his gaze, since his words had already been spoken. Whether he still felt guilty toward me no longer mattered. I turned to Section Chief Wang and said, Chief, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave now. By the time Section Chief Wang reacted, I had already stepped out of the office door. Suddenly, he shouted loudly, No, you are undoubtedly the most deserving candidate for this year's Advanced Worker Award. I halted in my tracks and turned to look at Section Chief Wang, only to find his eyes brimming with tears. I told Li Chungjia this secret because he was the only one who had been kind to me, but I never expected that he had already revealed the secret I thought was well hidden in my previous life. Everyone knew the kind of treatment a child bride would have endured growing up: indifference, neglect, abuse. All the worst adjectives have been my reality. My birth was nothing but a transaction for money. I can never forget the suffocating despair of being sent to the house of a man 30 years my senior, half paralyzed. After a full year, I finally escaped from that place. I fled to a place where no one knew my past, thinking I could start anew. Li Chungjia chased after me again, his expression hesitant and uncertain. It took him a long time to finally speak. No need, Director Wang, if she wants it, just give it to her. Also, my resignation hasn't been approved yet. Please try to process it as quickly as possible. Without any attachment, I wanted to leave as soon as I finished speaking. Ah Li, I'm sorry. I only revealed this matter in a moment of desperation. Li Chungjia's jaw tightened, and he said in a low voice, Don't say that. I only see her as a very good friend. Seeing that I didn't argue or fight back, he actually felt a twinge of guilt. I let out a mocking laugh, finding him ridiculous, and glared at him coldly. No need to apologize. After all, she's your favorite person. It's not like we ever had anything between us before. This treatment is only what I deserve. Just 10 minutes ago, he was distancing himself from Juying and me, and now he's saying such things to salvage his pitiful sense of guilt. How could we have no relationship? We're husband and wife. Everyone knows that. Li Chungjia took a few steps forward, chasing after me. Where are you going? I responded coldly. There's no need for you to say such unnecessary things. Goodbye, Director Wang, I said again before leaving. Li Chungjia stood there in a daze. After a long while, he shouted loudly at my retreating figure. None of your business, I replied coldly, not even turning my head as I walked away. I saw in her letter that the spot for the advanced worker is still mine. Section Chief Wang not only didn't give the qualification to Juying but also accused her of cheating and bribing the judges, disqualifying her from the selection for 5 years. Then come back early. I'll be waiting for you at home. I hurried into the city and squeezed onto the train to Shenzhen. Before coming, I had checked the passbook and saw there were 15,000 yuan, savings I had accumulated over nearly 10 years. Upon arriving in Shenzhen, I rented a very small room and settled in. Based on memories from my past life, the textile factory would lay off workers and collapse within 5 years. What would rapidly develop instead were appliance factories, those manufacturing color TVs and refrigerators. Shenzhen was the place with the largest pool of talent and closest proximity to raw materials. With insufficient funds at hand, I opened a breakfast stall in Shenzhen using the money I had. Every day, aside from being a bit tired, seeing the money pile up more and more is enough to satisfy me. Half a month later, the village from before somehow got hold of my current address and sent me a letter. The signature showed it was sent by Ju Qing, the only person in the village who supported my decision to leave. She and I were in similar situations, both unloved by our husbands. spending our days anxiously waiting for a man to come home. In the letter, she said she admired my courage to leave, asked what I've been up to lately, and wished me all the best in the future. She also mentioned that Lee Chungjia has become particularly despondent since I left. Every day after work, he just stands at the doorstep. When people ask him why he doesn't go inside, he says he's waiting for you to come back. I've started my life again, waking up early and working late, pushing a tricycle to sell breakfast. Although these days are tiring, compared to being by Lee Chungjia's side, it can almost be called happiness. I wrote her back, telling her that if things aren't going well, she can come to me anytime. At least I no longer have to worry or feel sad about whether Lee Chungjia will abandon me. After the visit, I was fairly satisfied and asked about the price. Boss Shu looked between Ju Qing and me for a moment, then asked an unrelated question. Not even a week passed before Ju Qing appeared at the door of my rented place, carrying a bag of luggage in her hand. I had just finished pushing the cart back and smiled at her. Made up your mind? Ju chuckled softly as she helped me push the cart into the yard, responding with a light mem. Later, she rented the house next to mine, and the two of us selling breakfast together doubled our previous earnings. A month later, we had saved up 40,000 yuan between us, so without delay, we went to the market to inquire about raw materials for electrical appliances. As the saying goes, good things take time. We spent several days running around but still couldn't find suitable materials. Ju Qing told me, "Today I found out about a workshop at the market that produces electrical appliances. The owner is from out of town and is planning to leave, so he's selling the workshop. Let's go check it out tomorrow. If it's suitable, we can take over the workshop." The next day, we found the owner and had him show us around the workshop. The location was ideal. And the workshop wasn't too large. It was within our capabilities. Boss Shu, what's your asking price for this workshop? Do you have skilled workers with expertise in electrical appliance manufacturing technology? Do you understand this industry? This question really stumped us. Ju Qing and I had jumped into this without any understanding of these matters. He could tell just by the glance Ju Qing and I exchanged. After careful consideration, Boss Shu looked at the workshop and said, "This represents half my life's work. If it weren't for matters back in my hometown, I would never sell it." An idea occurred to me, and I tentatively asked him, "Boss Shu, what if instead of buying the workshop, we invest in it? You would remain the boss and be responsible for the technical side. We would be shareholders, handling the sales from now on." Boss Shu, with a clouded gaze, thought it over for a long time and finally agreed. Ju Qing and I were overjoyed, and to celebrate, we even went out for a special meal at a restaurant. The joy lasted until we got home, where we saw Lee Chungjia and Ju Qing's husband standing at the door. Lee Chungjia looked at me for a long time, his eyes slightly red. He seemed to struggle with his words, but in the end, all he could do was hoarsely call out my name. I glanced at him, all the joy from earlier completely gone, and said with a cold expression and icy tone, "What are you doing here?" Lee Chungjia seemed at a loss in the face of my cold attitude. After a moment of silence, he timidly said, "I came to find you. If I remember correctly, there's no longer any relationship between us." I couldn't even be bothered to give him a glance. I really couldn't understand how his previously aloof personality had suddenly transformed into this. He even traveled all the way here to find me. Lee Chungjia took something wrapped in an envelope out of his bag and stuffed it into my hand, saying, "This is the medal for being named an advanced worker, along with some money. Section Chief Wang asked me to give it to you." I feel a round medal in my hand, and my heart aches a little. In my past life, I cried for a long time because I lost this selection, and Lee Chungjia bought me a cheap medal. I was so happy at the time, thinking he cared about my feelings and bought it especially for me. I never imagined it was just because he used my weakness to disqualify me from the selection and felt guilty when he saw me crying. I took it, raising my eyes coldly to glance at him. "If there's nothing else, I'll head home first." Home was just a few steps away, but Lee Chungjia grabbed my wrist, leaving me unable to move even half a step. I lowered my gaze to look at his hand, feeling somewhat ironic, and reminded him, "This is a public place. Aren't you afraid of tarnishing your image as a respectable teacher by pulling and tugging at me like this? Lee Chungjia visibly stiffened, but he still didn't let go of my hand. After a long while, he said in a muffled voice, "There's something else. I came to take you home." Hearing this, I found it utterly unbelievable. I looked up at him, and after a long pause, I let out a cold laugh and asked, "What? Want to take me back so Juying can vent her frustration about not getting the Advanced Worker Award?" This is his usual trick, whether in the past life or this one, always giving a candy, then slapping me awake, making me realize that every time he suddenly shows me kindness, it has a purpose. And that purpose is always for Juying. Lee Chungjia grabbed my hand and pulled it back, and I crashed into his arms completely unprepared. This was our first embrace. And his two hands held me tightly around the waist. His voice trembled. "I know I was wrong about what happened last time. I've been reflecting on my own issues these days. I didn't care enough about you before, but I'll change from now on. Will you come home with me?" For him to speak to me like this was already considered humbling himself, but my heart was as still as water, without a trace of emotion, and I pushed him away heavily. Lee Chungjia's face was filled with panic, confusion, bewilderment, and even a touch of anger. "I've already come to beg you like this, so stop being stubborn. Just how far do you want me to go?" Only then did I see clearly that he hadn't changed at all. The previous gesture of goodwill was just a cover. In front of me, he will always be the one who, confident in his favor, remains fearless and perpetually holds the upper hand. So, when I didn't respond to his attempts to please me, he would teeter on the edge of impatience and anger. I faced his anger with calm composure and asked him coolly in return, "Lee Chungjia, you came to me on your own. Now you feel you've stooped low enough. Don't you think that's ridiculous?" Lee Chungjia's expression was grim, his face heavy as he looked at me. After a moment, it was he who softened his tone first. "All right. I was in the wrong just now. My tone was too harsh. I've just been too worried about you these past few days. You haven't come home for a month. If it weren't for Ju Qingli finding out your location from her husband, I wouldn't have known you'd run off to such a faraway place." As he spoke, he kept staring at me with a probing gaze, as if trying to uncover other emotions beneath my composure. What does he want to see? I guess it's surprise, astonishment, excitement, thinking that with just a few more sweet words, I would follow him back. But that will never happen again. I turned my face away and saw that Ju Qing was also dealing with someone impatiently, just like me. How many times do I have to say it? We have no connection anymore. I no longer had the patience to continue dealing with Lee Chungjia, so I shook him off, entered the house, and locked the door. Lee Chungjia stood guard outside the door, knocking incessantly and pleading in a humble tone. "Ali, it was my fault earlier. Can you come out so we can talk, before long?" My next-door neighbor came out and yelled, "What are you doing, knocking non-stop? They don't want to see you. You're disturbing my child's homework." After that, the knocking stopped, and Lee Chungjia left after continuously apologizing. I enthusiastically prepared 3 dishes and brought them to Ju Qing's room, hoping to have a long chat with her all night. Unexpectedly, she had also cooked 3 dishes. We looked at each other and smiled. Ju Qing said, "I never thought there would be a time when he would stoop so low to beg me." The table couldn't even hold all 6 dishes. I laughed heartily, feeling as though after a lifetime, it was only now that life was truly beginning. We opened 2 bottles of soda, clinked glasses, and I laughed heartily. Boss Shu has also agreed. I feel that this kind of life now is truly a new beginning. Breaking free from Lee Chungjia, leaving behind that self-doubting relationship, and soon having a career, each of these is a wonderful thing. The next day, after Ju Qing and I finished setting up our stall, we arranged to meet with Boss Shu. He explained to us the management of the workshop workers and also told us how to inspect the finished products. He also gave us a suggestion that Ju Qing and I should sign up for a mechanical manufacturing class. We don't need to understand a lot, just know the process and standards of electrical appliance production. We could see that Boss Shu had deep feelings for this workshop. The day before we left, he told us to make sure to visit it every day. I waved to him with a smile. "Don't worry, now we are shareholders too." Ju Qing and I took his advice and signed up for the class. We made money by running a breakfast stall, waiting for the day we could expand the workshop into a factory. Another half a month passed, and the workshop produced a batch of finished color TVs. Boss Shu also returned from his hometown. He discussed the issue of selling with us, saying, "There's a tricky issue now. The cost of raw materials has increased quite a bit compared to before, but the price of Shenzhen color TVs is only 260 yuan. If we raise the price, they won't sell." Ju Qing nudged me twice as he listened. "Do you remember how much color TVs sold for in our village?" "I think they were over 470 yuan. I nodded. "The color TVs in our area are all shipped from Shenzhen, so the price must have gone up." As soon as these words were spoken, a flash of inspiration struck me, and I slapped the table. "We can transport the color TVs to the south to sell." We quickly discussed the shipping costs and rental fees, and after calculating, each color TV could be sold for over 100 yuan more than in Shenzhen. Ju Qing and I paused our breakfast stall for a week, rented a truck, found a driver to head south, and sold an entire truckload of color TVs. After returning to Shenzhen, I counted the money and found I had earned over 10,000 on this trip. After sharing this news with Boss Shu, we were both overjoyed. I then discussed my future plans with him, explaining that I wanted to use this money to buy a truck, hire 2 drivers, and continue pursuing a career in transportation. Boss Shu thought it was feasible and withdrew 30,000 from our previous investment of 40,000, leaving the 2 of us to handle the matter. This plan has been implemented for 3 months, not only allowing us to earn enough money to expand the workshop but also making a name for ourselves in the southern market. We also opened up a transportation route, ensuring that if the southern market sources goods from us, it will be 20 yuan cheaper than from other places. Earlier, Section Chief Wang from the village found out that I was the one selling color TVs and quickly wrote to ask if I had any connections. I informed him about the plan to expand the workshop into a factory and mentioned that if he was interested, he could invest. Section Chief Wang collaborated with several other secretaries from the factory to discuss and deliberate, and the 5 of them jointly invested 50,000 yuan in us. Boss Shu found a well-located site and moved the workshop there with great fanfare. In just 2 months, Ju Qing and I transformed into shareholders of the electrical appliance factory. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Boss Shu smiled happily and sighed with emotion. "Wu Li, do you have some kind of clairvoyant ability? How do you manage to handle everything so smoothly? We've already established an electrical appliance factory in less than half a year." Ju Qing also smiled and said, "When I came out to find you, I never imagined we'd make money. I just wanted to have something of my own to do. I never expected we could achieve something like this." I smiled and complimented both of them. "It's all thanks to everyone's collaboration." After the ribbon-cutting ceremony, we went out to eat at a restaurant. The place was a bit stuffy, so I stepped outside to get some fresh air. I saw Li Chengjia outside the restaurant. Actually, it wasn't surprising to see him. Ever since he came to Shenzhen to look for me 4 months ago and I gave him the cold shoulder, he disappeared for a few days. After that, he started appearing frequently in Shenzhen, showing up in front of me several times, wanting to say something but not daring to speak to me. For 4 consecutive months, it had been like that, but I always turned a blind eye and ignored him, only occasionally seeing boxed meals hanging at my doorstep or new clothes made of fabric in plastic bags. So, I simply moved away, buying a 50-square-meter house with a wave of my hand to live in by myself. Since then, this was the first time I had seen him in almost a month. When Section Chief Wang wrote to me, he spoke very metaphorically, as if saying he had taken unpaid leave to go look for someone and would return. It's also said that Ju Ying was fired by the factory, and it was Li Chengjia who personally reported her. They say she cheated during her marriage, and the factory couldn't accept an employee with such poor moral character. Now Ju Ying is busy begging her city husband not to divorce her. Li Chengjia seemed to be deliberately waiting for me outside. When I came out, he walked toward me step by step and said quietly, "I have something I want to tell you." I looked at him coldly and said, "There's nothing left for us to talk about." Just as I was about to leave, he grabbed my arm, but only for a moment before immediately letting go. His voice was hoarse. And he buried his head as if he couldn't bear to look me in the eye. With a hint of tears in his voice, he said, "After I say this, I'll give up for good." I remained silent for a long time, standing in the wind as I watched him. Lee Chungjia, dressed in thin, worn-out clothes, looked desolate and defeated, as if he could be easily crushed by a single word. That face was still the same, a handsome face I had loved in my past life, but before, he had always carried himself with confidence and an air of indifference in front of me. This was the first time I had ever seen him so humble and submissive, lowering his posture like this. "Speak, you have 5 minutes." I glanced at my watch and said coldly. Lee Chungjia said impatiently, I've been in Shenshin all this time, right by your side." I responded softly. I saw, he kept looking at me, but still couldn't detect any emotion on my face. He said dejectedly, "Ali, I was really unwilling to accept it at first. I felt that after all these years between us, how could we separate because of Juying? Countless times I've regretted my impulsiveness back then. I hate myself for not standing firm, always thinking about how Juying once saved my father's life and that I needed to repay her, which ended up hurting you with your secret." My eyes were dim, and I remained silent. Half a year has passed, and he still doesn't know why I chose to leave him. He just feels that if he hadn't revealed all my secrets back then, perhaps I wouldn't have left without any hesitation. The wind tousled his hair, which had grown much longer. His stubble had also grown out without being trimmed, making him look nothing like the so-called respectable teacher he was supposed to be, even though his face was right in front of me, a face I had seen countless times in my past life. My vision was now so blurry that I could only make out a faint outline. Perhaps it was love that etched his image so deeply in my mind, and after the love faded, the specific details vanished, leaving only a blurred outline. Choking up, he continued, "I've seen it these past few days. You're better off without me." I wrapped my coat tighter and watched his tears with the same cold indifference he had shown me in a past life. After a moment of silence, I said, "Lee Chungjia, it wasn't just one thing that made me decide to leave you." He raised his reddened eyes to look at me, his gaze filled with melancholy and confusion, and replied hoarsely, "I know, I haven't been giving you enough attention." I rejected his answer and said earnestly, "Because I can see our future. I can see that 20 years from now, you will still like Juying. This incident is just an interlude, a temporary denial of your feelings for her." He shook his head firmly, refuting me. "No, I've already seen my own heart clearly. I've only ever felt gratitude toward her. Ali, all along, the person I've loved is you. I'm used to having you by my side, chattering away with me. Without you, the home feels so quiet and uncomfortable. In this lifetime, many things have happened that I never expected, some even to the point of being astonishing." Lee Chungjia confessing his feelings and speaking of love to me was one of them. I calmly interrupted him, "Then you'll have to get used to it, because I won't be by your side in the future." He suddenly closed his lips, his brows furrowed together, not out of anger, but sorrow, for the first time. I actually found myself using the word pitiful to describe Lee Chungjia. He lowered his eyes, wanting to say something but not daring to speak, whether it was from the wind or overwhelming grief. His shoulders kept trembling incessantly. After this one sentence, I felt like a puppet that had lost its soul. Staring blankly at the floor, letting the tears flow freely, I remained indifferent and continued, "Actually, it's good that you said it. At least now nothing can hurt me anymore. I won't be hurt by anyone again, Ali." Lee Chungjia looked at me deeply, his lips parting several times before finally merging into one sentence. "I'm sorry." I ignored this apology and instead raised my wrist to check the time, saying impatiently, "Time's up, I should go in now." Lee Chungjia didn't chase after me. He stood there in a daze until we finished our meal and came out. He was still there. When Ju Qing saw him, she whispered, "How did he manage to track us down here?" I casually said. "Who knows, maybe he's just being a jerk." Ju Qing nodded and said to me with a smile, "You know, my ex-husband was dead set against the divorce before, right? But he agreed recently, and now I finally have nothing to worry about." "That's great, let's go out to eat again tomorrow to celebrate." As I turned to look at her with a smile, I happened to catch sight of Lee Chungjia frozen in place. He had been watching me, his gaze following, so as soon as I glanced at him, our eyes met. Lee Chungjia forced a stiff and reluctant smile, just like the first time we met in our previous life. But at that time, I thought, he was really cute. Now, however, I only feel annoyed, turning my gaze back to the front and continuing to walk forward. The three of us started our own company and created our own electrical appliance brand. Initially, it sold very well in the southern market, attracting many businesses to collaborate with us. With the first pot of gold I earned, I also told Ju Qing that the price of commercial housing would rise in a few years. Ju Qing didn't even ask me where I heard the news and invested all his savings into commercial housing. I invested in the construction industry together with him and started a real estate business. The dividends from the electrical appliance factory are distributed quarterly. Section Chief Wang and the others have already received their dividends, so I called him. I asked for his bank account number to transfer the money to him. However, Section Chief Wang said, "I never expected to get this money back. You keep it." I found it strange and refused to accept it, insisting on sending the money back. Section Chief Wang hesitated for a long time before finally telling me the truth. "Wu Li, actually, these 50,000 yuan were given to you by Lee Chungjia. He said that if he gave it to you personally, you definitely wouldn't accept it. So he asked me to give it to you under the pretense of investing in you. He said that in everyone's eyes, my business venture is just a small individual operation, and it's bound to fail sooner or later. No one intended to give me any money." After telling Lee Chungjia about it, he handed over his bank book and asked him to give the money to me. I thought about it and still decided to send the money to Section Chief Wang. Tell him that the factory is no longer as prosperous as it used to be, and this money should be saved to support the laid-off workers in the future. The people in the factory treated me quite well back then, and this money can be considered as repaying their kindness to me. Ju Qing and her ex-husband finally got their divorce certificate, and she dragged me to a photo studio to take a picture. Compared to when we first started out a year ago, both of us have changed. We've become braver and more resilient. Ju Qing gently stroked the photo. Laughing until her eyes blurred with tears, with glistening eyes, she said to me, "Wu Li, I never thought I could live like this one day." I also cried tears of joy. Everything from the past is over now. From now on, life will be good. I firmly believe. Today's story ends here. If you've listened this far, please leave happy every day in the comments section. Wishing everyone happiness every day.